Hello and welcome back to All About Community. Again, my name is RLHarris and I am your host. When we went to break, I was talking with Loren Taylor, who is a candidate for mayor of this great city of Oakland, and we were discussing some of the problems of crime and homicide, and he was starting to talk about a concept called call to action, I believe.
The Stand Tall.
Stand Tall.
Together Against Losing Lives, TALL.
Okay, well,
yes.
let's discuss that in more detail.
Absolutely. So there are 5 key goals of this call to action. The first is that we double our homicide and violent crime clearance rate. We have to be able to solve these crimes and bring justice to those who were victims and family members of victims. The second is we have to double our response time for 911 calls. So we cannot afford to have residents call 911 and wait up to a day, 2 days for someone to respond when they're in an emergency. Yes, sometimes longer. We also have to double our investment into proven crime prevention and deterrence programs, strategies, like our ceasefire program, like our violence interrupter program that come and meet victims of gun violence at the bedside to deter retaliation. Also, like our OK program, where we know matching our black male leaders with black police officers to engage those young men who are most at risk for violence has proven itself successful.
Now, I understand ceasefire program, I guess, sort of shut down during the pandemic. It is now opening up, I understand, and you think it's making a difference? A comeback or whatever? Yeah,
ceasefire is a proven strategy in a very data-driven and targeted way addressing those who are most at risk for committing gun violence or being a victim of it. It helped us to reduce gun violence dramatically in the 5 years preceding the pandemic, and we know that it works, so we should absolutely be doubling down our investments into it. It did scale back during the pandemic. We weren't able to have the face-to-face contact that is so critical to that program, but it has resurged, and I am in conversations with our chief to make sure that we are also increasing the number of ceasefire units available to respond and engage.
Now, there's another department, I guess, that was established 3 or 4 years ago. I guess it's just starting up, called Violence Prevention Department. Now, explain to the viewers, what is the Violence Prevention Department and what do you anticipate it will do?
Absolutely. So violence prevention, it has to go hand in hand with the violence response. You know my background, Bob, as a biomedical engineer and a healthcare innovation consultant. I put things in terms of the public health approach. We can't just address diabetes after their disease has progressed so long that they now have to take insulin and may be in risk of a foot amputation. We have to do the prevention early, which means that we have to address the root causes. We have to understand those behaviors that reduce the impacts. And that's what the Violence Prevention Department is doing. It's identifying those risk factors for gun violence and other violence in our community.
Now, has it really begun to take action? And if so, what are some of the impacts of it? I just don't know what it does.
Absolutely. So our Violence Prevention Department, it does take this public health approach. So when we look at what causes serious crime to grow and increase, we talked about retaliation and how meeting people at the bedside is one way of helping them understand other opportunities at a point when they're receptive to that, to reduce the amount of retaliatory gun violence. It's also important to create activities for those young people and older folks at the times when crime is most likely to occur, to address, as my grandmother said, the devil making use of idle hands. If we have positive, productive programs targeted to those most at risk, then we can see a difference.
Now, does it assist the police department, and how does it interface with the police department, if it does at all?
Yeah, so it is a community based and centered response that has to be in parallel with the police enforcement response. So when a a violent crime, gun violence occurs, we have a triangular response. Police come out to do their job. The Violence Prevention Department comes out to do their job, anticipate
Okay, so they work in tandem.
They work in parallel to address the issues.
Very good. And let me ask you, what is your comments on this concept of defund the police, and what's your understanding of that? And does it make sense? That's several different questions altogether.
Absolutely. So first of all, defund is a terrible word because way of phrasing this, it focuses on taking away as opposed to adding and contributing and enhancing life. When I look at the concept of defunding, I think we all agree that we have to get to that more perfect and better criminal justice system that better serves all of us. The challenge is we can't get there overnight. And we have to be able to support people and their safety needs while we make this transition. It's a lot like building the eastern span of the Bay Bridge. We didn't tear down the old span until we got that new span up and running, where we tested it out. We had people driving across it. You may remember that we had cracks in the bolts that were connecting the cables when that bridge first went up. If we hadn't have done the testing to begin with, we wouldn't have been able to figure that out, and we could have done more harm than good. So similarly with the reimagining of policing, we have to, in parallel, build, test out, and then we'll be able to dismantle some of those systemic issues that have existed and persisted.
Okay, well, you heard it from the next mayor of Oakland, he hopes. And but we're going to have to go to break, so don't touch that remote. We will be right back with All About Community. Again, my name is RLHarris, and I'm speaking with Loren Taylor, who represents currently the District 6 here in Oakland, but he is running for the mayor of Oakland. We will be right back.